I was just going to say, speaking about politics and positioning and sending out messages, there was another thing that happened last week, and that had to do with reopening, in a sense, the gun debate. So Stephen Harper, about 9 days ago, stands up in Saskatchewan, speaking to the Rural Association of Rural Municipalities, and the issue of guns came up. Now, just to refresh everybody's memory, here's what Stephen Harper had to say in Saskatchewan about guns and personal safety. Take a listen.
My wife's from a rural area. Gun ownership wasn't just for the farm, it was also for a certain level of security when you're ways away from police, immediate police assistance.
Okay, so security when you're away from immediate police assistance for personal security. Well, then a few days later, as we know, he's campaigning in southern Ontario in the outskirts of Toronto, and it comes up again. What did you actually mean by that, Prime Minister? And take a listen to what he said about that same issue in Toronto.
Well, look, in terms of the remarks, I think some interpretations, the interpretation you just put on it is patently ridiculous. It is patently ridiculous. You know, gun owners in Canada are not allowed to take the law into their own hands.
You know, it's not often that a politician denounces himself in a matter of about a week. Jen, what did you make of that?
Honestly, when I watched the Toronto news conference, I was like, what? You know, what does this mean? And in those kind of contexts, that kind of news conference, you can't really, and purposely so, you can't really press him. Like, so what did you mean by personal security? Remember, the first part of that statement was that it's not just about the farm, right? So he's taken out, you know, out of the equation, presumably shooting pests and so on your farm, that element of safety. So he's talking about some sort of personal security that, home invasion? We don't know. So that's, I mean, I think he really confused the issue, but perhaps that's on purpose, right? There's a two-track message going on.
You know, there are two audiences to this. What we have to remember, too, is that when he said that, I asked myself, my gosh, did he put his foot in it? I mean, does he know what he's doing? Within a day, Jenny Byrne, who runs the campaign for the Conservative Party, put out an email in which she said she was proud of how the Prime Minister was saying that you can use guns in a rural setting for your own safety if the cops aren't nearby. This is the first time we've heard this. I've always heard Stephen Harper talk about guns being needed by farmers for their own, you know, out in the farm, but for duck hunters as well. He's never said, if you need a gun for your own safety. Now, the story breaks. I and others write about this. The Canadian Bar Association points out that, you know, you can't really do that. And if you're going to use a gun in your own home, if there's an intruder, you might want to think twice because you might end up in jail yourself. Then we get the statement from the Prime Minister, which seems to be on the absolute opposite end of what he said just a few days earlier. What's it all about? Covering your you-know-what.
But if you get a whole bunch of, well, for lack of a better term, urban organizations, the Canadian Bar Association, different media pundits and so on, coming out against what you just said about the Prime Minister's statement on guns, that can also work in your benefit, right? To your base, people that would support you for your position on gun ownership, on the situation in rural areas. So
it will work for the Conservative base, but all I guess I'm thinking is this. There will be Canadians out there, and I've heard from them, who have already interpreted this as a sign that Stephen Harper wants to move down the path of an American gun system, which he denies flatly, but that's the danger for him.
And this is very negative in Quebec. So apart from certain rural areas, but I mean, really, it's a gun control is a major issue.
But probably a classic example of one message working well in one part of the country and the same message hitting a clunker in the other. Jennifer Ditchburn of Canadian Press, Mark Kennedy of the Ottawa Citizen, thanks as always. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.